Hello and welcome to our webinar on direct routing for Microsoft Teams, presented by Ooma. I'm your host, Katie Bavoso from the Channel Company. My guest today is Head of Business Channels at Ooma, Dave Beagle. Welcome, Dave. Thank you so much for being here. Let's jump right into it. Once again, today we will be discussing direct routing for Microsoft Teams. Let's go right into segment one, the trials of using and managing Microsoft Teams. Dave, before we get started, I want to give you a chance to tell us, what is Ooma and what are you all about?
Well, first of all, thank you, Katie, for allowing me to jump on. And in New York, we say routing. So I know up there in the Boston area, it's routing. So we'll leave the dialect stuff behind. We'll collaborate. But Ooma, we are a unified communications provider. We've been around since 2004. And I got to say, to this audience specifically, I think we've probably been the best known secret in channel for years. You know, we've been doing the B2B market since 2013. We went public in 2015. And then we started to really go up market, if you will, through some acquisitions. We've acquired a couple companies in 2018, 2019. And we have a couple different UC suites of services, if you will. So we have Ooma Office, and then we have Ooma Enterprise. And both these practices, we layer in a lot of what I would say is one of our key differentiators, and that's the value proposition. So we are really, if we don't drive value from a feature functionality perspective, from a contractual perspective, or price perspective, then we'll probably get lost in the shuffle of the sheer amount of competition that's out there. But we provide a lot of support, not only nationally, but we actually provide global support as well from an international perspective and local DIDs, et cetera. And then one of the questions that usually comes out of this, okay, that's great, Dave, you know, where do you fit, right? And so at the end of the day, we'll take as little as one user. Ooma Office is perfect for that, very transactional. We offer a no contract option, all the way up to literally thousands and thousands of users. Our largest client is approaching 25,000 users globally, highly distributed environments, hospitality, et cetera. But Ooma at the end of the day is probably one of the secrets that I think that you should know. You probably have heard of us, but you probably should take some time and actually look under the covers a little more.
Great, Dave. Let's move into the first question in this segment. Many companies today have splintered collaboration tools. What are the biggest challenges for IT departments to getting everyone in the organization on board using one solution?
I think the key one right there, right out the gate, is choosing one solution. Think of these concepts in the idea of shadow IT, which is really, think about people working from home or working from anywhere today. They're leveraging applications that they're putting on their devices, whether a remote device or their own laptops or computers, to really try to make their work flow better. But if you're an IT director, if you're managing all the infrastructure, how do you provide the policies and the guidance, and more importantly, the support of all of those elements? It becomes very fractious and, quite frankly, very disruptive. I can say that, in my organization, we've had 3 different collaboration tools that we've engaged with, primarily because of acquisitions of other companies. But, how do you settle on one? You need to really define what is the most practical, not only from a cost perspective, but really from an adoption of how easy it is to use, how easy it is to leverage, especially, again, in that work from anywhere environment. Being able to support it remotely as much as you could internally to your office, it becomes a critical factor.
Absolutely, Dave. And that actually leads into question 2, because while choosing a specific solution can be a process, how are companies succeeding with implementation and training their employees?
Well, you have to really kind of create, again, a defined set of processes for any application you're supporting in your environment. And so when you're looking at collaboration, you have to choose the one. And then once you choose the one, you're going to have to figure out how are you going to train all your employees, not only internally or remotely. That could be online classes, could be your own internal webinars. It could be email templates that are actually, a step-by-step process of whether it's the initial setup or how are you going to do your kind of the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the time I use these 20% of the things, right? Or 20 elements. It really gets back into more, again, when we think collaboration, it really is communication, right? How am I going to effectively drive the adoption in making it as easy as possible for somebody to use? If it's not easy, people won't use it. So that training becomes the underlying pinning of whether or not it's going to be leveraged.
And not only about being easy, but does incorporating direct routing for voice make Teams more attractive to IT and to the users? And if so, why? What challenges would this solve?
Well, we're making a pretty big bet that this is going to be probably the number one driver for most IT departments in larger organizations. If you think about how easy it is to deploy, it's probably already on your desktop as part of the Office 365 suite. Microsoft is renowned for their software development, and Teams itself has become such a hub that it's already there. And so, from an adoption rate for IT, it makes sense. They're already supporting the Exchange. They're already, from an email perspective, they're already supporting, Excel and Word and all the other things that come with Office 365. This is just kind of another element of it, and it's there. And so if they can uniformly decide this is what we're going to use as our collaboration tool, they don't have to worry about how do we deploy it. They don't have to worry about, do I need to train somebody on one element of my Office 365 suite and then another whole other set of collaboration tools. We're able to create something that is more uniformly adopted within an organization. And what I think is more interesting is that while Office 365, at least Teams specifically, was predominantly being leveraged in larger organizations, we're starting to see some of the smaller organizations taking it on as well. Again, it's integrated, it's already there. You almost just have to turn it on.
Dave, that brings us into segment 2, VoIP providers versus Microsoft Direct. So let's talk about VoIP providers' voice quality and pricing compared to Microsoft's own calling plans. Can you describe the differences between Microsoft and VoIP?
Well, when we think of VoIP in general, right, it's voice over the IP networks. And so, I mean, most of that, it's just more of a technology term. But when you really want to break down the differences between a provider like Ooma versus a team solution with Microsoft, I mean, Microsoft, as I mentioned, they're renowned as a software developer. That's their core. What they do is software. But what Ooma does is unified communications. We provide the voice layer, right? We provide the consistency of a network that provides the connection to the outside world, if you will. And so one of the things Microsoft has done very well, and again, driving the UI, the user experience, in where they've struggled, I won't say suffered, but where they've struggled over the years is providing the quality of the PSTN connectivity so that they can externally communicate. So if you think about it, Teams is a peer-to-peer relationship software, right? It is all about the collaboration internally to your organization. But if I'm on a Teams environment, I want to make a call outside of my organization, I don't have that built in. I have to get a calling plan from Microsoft. And that calling plan, it's something that they just kind of as a value add. The pricing may not be as effective as you would like it to be. Whereas Ooma, we have 2 million endpoints on our network that we support. We have great buying power with our providers in our underlying peering relationships to be able to provide a very aggressive price point from a direct routing perspective for Teams. The other piece that IT, has to look at is outside of the calling plans on there is what's my reliability on that? We have all of the session border controllers. We have all of the peering relationships, as I mentioned. And more importantly, we have the clarity of the voice call. Teams doesn't mean much if I'm going to make an external call and I'm warbly and I don't sound good. I sound like I'm underwater. It's not an effective communication tool in that manner, right? And so having a true PSTN provider underneath and going with one that actually this is their bread and butter, that's where we think our partnership in this engagement with Microsoft is better than actually trying to compete with them.
Speaking of bread and butter, what exactly is Ooma Direct Routing for Microsoft Teams and how does it work?
Really in essence, and this will sound terrible for me to say, but in essence, it's SIP trunks, right? We're providing a SIP trunking connection to the Teams environment. So it literally is layering in our session border controllers, making the connection from your Teams, from your organization standpoint to us, and then routing any of those external calls out to the PSTN. We'll add some additional functionality that maybe you don't have within the Teams feature set. So if you want to layer in, for example, a queuing system like a call center capability, we can do that with our own UC services, our own bread and butter core feature sets. In addition to providing some other things like, one of the things, if you look at most larger organizations, they have what we call these courtesy phones, right? You might have a phone in a kitchen. You might have a phone in an IT room. You might have a phone in each individual classroom. There's no piece of software that's tied to that phone where you're doing a Teams collaboration, but you still need to have dial tone access and the connectivity to the outside world for 911 reasons, and also just for internal collaboration or internal communication. And so that's where we get to bring our expertise to the table in combination with the feature functionality of a Teams environment.
So now we've got Ooma, we're setting it up. Everyone's excited about it, but of course, there's everything that comes after that. So, how does Ooma help solve any implementation or adoption headaches?
Well, one of the ways that we support post, if you will, is we have a lot of our partners that we work with are already providing a lot of the support infrastructure for Microsoft within the organizations they support. And so we allow them to do what they do best: support the operating system, support the Office 365 and the UI, but allow us to support what we do best, which is, again, the core telephony aspect. So we'll provide a lot of the guidance on what they need to do on their end, but then at the end of the day, we'll provide all of the support for the PSTN. So if there's a call quality issue, you call us. You don't call your IT guy, because at the end of the day, they're going to be calling us anyway. So we'll provide that first level of support. We'll provide a lot of the guidance wrapped around that. As I mentioned earlier, we're providing support to 2 million endpoints across the country. It's something that we do very well. We understand call quality. We understand how to troubleshoot it. We understand how to direct, certain best practices, whether it's opening up certain things on a firewall or whether it's, especially, and again, a work from anywhere, work from a home environment. You have a lot of different networks internally to your own user that are harder to support if you were in a one office, for example. So we have a lot of that guidance through our Ooma UC practice in general. And so again, the partnership there is more about you do what you do best and we'll support you there. Let us do what we do best and we'll support you there as well.
Well, Dave, like you say, Ooma is there for its customers, its partners. So let's have a moment to talk exactly about that. So segment 3, why choose Ooma for direct routing for Microsoft Teams? What are the main benefits of partnering with Ooma for direct routing for Teams?
Number one, it's the voice quality. So we have 7 global data centers that we route all of our traffic through. It's our peering relationships we have with all the interconnects. It's the fact that we are supporting 2 million endpoints. So that would be the number one reason. We have the breadth and we have the scale, if you will, to support that infrastructure. The second thing is we're a publicly traded company and, we're on the New York Stock Exchange. And what that really kind of means is that you can see our financials are strong. We're a company that's going to be around. We're a company that has staying power. In fact, we've acquired a few companies recently. So from that perspective, you have a confidence that the company you're partnering with will be there to support you tomorrow. So there's that aspect. And then another fundamental reason, and I don't like to always sell on price, but when we think that these are just in essence SIP trunks to a Teams environment with some ancillary UC solutions, our buying power allows us to be highly competitive. No, I'm not even going to say highly competitive. I'm going to say disruptive. We have very disruptive pricing. I don't think you'll find a provider on the direct routing market that can beat us.
Dave, let's talk more about that pricing. What is the pricing model and how will Ooma afford partners to make recurring revenue? And do you offer spiffs and other incentives?
Short answer is awesome, great, and yes. But no, we have a couple different pricing models. We understand that it's not a cookie cutter thing, right? It's not a one size fits all. So we have what we would call a bundled package, which is basically an unlimited per user model, which most everybody has in a direct routing world. But we also have this kind of concept of an unbundled, which is basically I can create virtual lines with a certain user count on top of it, which really helps out companies who don't have heavy phone use, but need to have an all-in-one package for users, but it wouldn't be per user on an expensive line. So the way I'd like to equate this for people in the audience who knows this space, think of it in the sense of like when I say virtual lines, if you're a manufacturing organization and you don't use the phones heavily and you have 200 users, you don't want 200 individual per user licensing that is like at $10, $12, $15. What you want are, based upon your call volume, is backing into maybe 15, 20 virtual lines. And then every individual has maybe a subset that we provide some calling plan and packages on top of. It keeps the costs much more attractive because at the end of the day, what most people will not tell you is that when you have a Microsoft Office 365 license and you want to voice enable it, there's another component, a price component that Microsoft is going to charge. And so if you have a provider like Ooma come in, there's a price on us, there's a price with them. It combined has to make sense to you. And we see a lot of our competitors come in with one price Once you layer in the Microsoft price, it may not make sense. And that's why you see a lot of people go to a third party or some other collaboration tool internally versus adopting what's already on the desktop. So our pricing is very much designed so that you would adopt what you have there, and so that we're not competing with what we see from a development or a resource perspective that Microsoft has. I mean, look how many releases they put out. But from a partnership perspective, can you make money? Absolutely. We drive residual streams to our partners on an evergreen basis. As long as the client is with us and you're the partner of record, you're receiving residuals from us. And we've had some partners that have been like, listen, I really want to mark this up. No, you don't. You don't want to be the billing. You don't want to do the collection. It's crazy. Why would you want to do that? If you net out what we're going to give you on a residual perspective, it's probably what you would make after you take out all your overhead and all the other things that you go with it. So it's a rich program. When I think about the incentives, listen, I'm going to tease this audience. This is a promo that we have that expires April 30th because we're on a shifted fiscal calendar. But right now, if you know the channel, if you will, you know that we have up to a 10x spiff on teams going out there right now. So if you have a 500 user organization and they're doing a 3-year deal with us, that's a 10x. So I think most people listening or watching this probably can do the math. It's pretty darn good.
Well, Dave, how can partners learn more about Ooma's offering and how can they sell it?
Well, the simple answer is you can go to our website, ooma.com/teams. You have some information there, but there's other ways you can do that too. Is you can reach out to any of our channel managers that we have within our organization, or you can shoot even myself a direct email, and I'll route you to the right body who can help you. I'm always available in that manner. In fact, I'll even provide my cell phone number, and you can call that too. But we're here to support all of our partners across the spectrum, all types. And at the end of the day, what you're going to learn is that we are really here to try to partner with you. And that's really all I got to say on that.
That brings us to the end of our webinar then, Dave. Thank you so much for being here today and talking to me about this. We're really excited to see what Ooma brings to the table in 2021. Once again, I'm Katie Bavoso. Thank you at home for watching.